ahead and call this meeting to order. So we'll go ahead and do introductions, starting with Melinda, and go around the table.
Good morning. I'm Melinda Freeman. I'm the director of the Municipal Department of Health and Human Services.
I'm Judy Jetson, staff to Felix Rivera on the Assembly.
Felix Rivera.
Christopher Constance.
Dick Crane.
Forrest Dunbar.
Reed Peterson.
And let's go ahead and do a round of introductions in the audience, starting with you, Linda.
Okay. Linda Garrison, Campbell Park Community Council, Homeless Committee.
Kim Sykes, Institute Community Alliances.
Zach Burgess, Student Committee Alliance.
Staff Coordinator at the System Program Manager.
Allison Kerr, Covenant House.
Carletta Mack, Covenant House.
Fiona Jones, Clifford Center.
Terry Collins, Alaska Healthy Finance Corporation. Mark Deere, Covenant House.
Orange Jones, HVAC, Field Special Church. Doug Lindsay, Division of Behavioral Health.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Ron.
Leva, Jason Crawford, Vernon.
Zachary Hughes, Alaska Public Media.
Tom McGrath, just citizen.
Great. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and start with our business items. So first on the agenda, just a committee discussion, and this could be brief. Just go over again our mission, outcomes, and expectations for the committee. After the last meeting, I believe Sierra emailed everyone a copy of the new statement of mission for the committee, which is the second item under the first tab in your binder. And I believe some of you had some suggestions and edits to make to that new statement of mission. So feel free to send those on to Sierra, or if you have any now you'd like to discuss. But unless we have any overriding big changes to make to this statement, I'd like us to informally just adopt this as the new statement of mission for this committee. Okay, seeing no objections to that, we'll move forward. One of the things that Nancy, who couldn't be here, she's traveling right now, she had wanted us to look at including in this statement of mission some guiding principles that this committee could use in the work. So that could be something that we can add when Nancy gets back in July, and we can have that discussion. Our ex officio members aren't here. I had wanted them to talk a little bit about the community's perspective, but I guess I'm just going to open up really quickly to members in the audience who want to speak briefly on particularly this committee and issues that you think this committee should be tackling, especially as we, as I come on as the new chair and we have this new statement of mission, which I don't know if the committee, if members of the audience have it, but I'll briefly read the three legs of this committee. So the Committee on Homelessness will focus on a three-leg stool strategy. First, acting on projects and policies which the Assembly and the Anchorage community believe will eradicate homelessness. Second, convening stakeholder groups to discuss and resolve barriers to the goals set by the Assembly and administration, which we're actually having a couple of those presentations today. And then third, assisting in the success of the administration's efforts, which we're going to hear a little bit about more when we get to the mayor's report. But if anyone wants to speak maximum of 2 minutes on any of these items, I would be more than happy to listen to the community's perspective. perspective on this, if you think the Assembly Committee should maybe be tackling something a little differently. This is one of the items that's critically important for me and for this committee to really listen to the community and to get more input. Otherwise, you will have an opportunity at the audience participation part to talk, but if you have specific to the statement of mission for the committee, love to hear your thoughts. Sure, Rod, specific to the statement of mission.
Okay, I think your mission is 3 broken legs right over the chute. I think you're not in touch with the issues, and I think you're wasting a lot of time and money, not only with this committee, but with Housing First, and you're really out of touch. Now, I have a letter of surrender, so I'm moving away, because this new homeless issue is more about heroin, and they're shooting up in the shelter, they're throwing needles over the fence, they have no morals. And if APAC's here from the Native Covenant Church, they've desecrated that church. The definition of vermin can be people who bring harm to the community, and that's what this level of the new homelessness is in this community. So I think what you're doing to promote Housing First and to expand 2 years the emergency shelter only draws more homeless and problems to the city. And when you're tackling heroin, I picked up 27 needles. I'm the only property owner that goes to Melinda's agency and picks up a container to put needles in. It's so unsafe, even among the clients. The man who got stabbed, the perpetrator ran onto my lot, and my dogs stopped him. But I can't release my dogs because of the needles that come over the fence. Now, I had a half a box of 9mm bullets and 3 hypodermic needles. So what? Where's the gun? So I'm out of there. It's too unsafe, too dangerous, and for you to dilute this across the city is wrong. Jewel Lake, they tried it, they filled the gymnasium. No one wants this in the backyard. The only place you're going to expand is right where you're at. So, all your
So Ron, if you
social
could wrap it up,
do-gooders,
your 2 minutes are up.
okay, all the social do-gooders, get it out of your head that this is not a war with compassion, dignity, and care. This is a war against vermin. You gotta fight them hard.
Thank you, Ron. So, one of the positive things I will take from Mr. Oliva's talk there, and one of the things that I would like us to do more is really look at this from a holistic perspective, talking about housing, talking about affordable housing. I think it's really important that we tackle that. So thank you, Ron. Anyone else want to speak specific to the statement of mission? Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on then to the
Wait,
data.
Felix, can I say something, please?
Sure.
They're human beings, not vermin. We will never refer to them that way. And
You're
it just
vermin,
can't-
you
I just
come
can't.
down and look at them and how they behave, they are vermin.
We're not going to use that term in this committee. And I will never support anyone that uses that term here.
Come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Number. All right, so moving on then to the data dashboard. So in your packets after the new statement of mission, Mr. Croft and I and Ms. Burke and a few members in the audience met after our last meeting to go over some of the data. And in here you'll see this first one that has broke it down, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 being days from street contact to case management, phase 2 days from case management to housing, and phase 3 months of length of stay in permanent housing. This is the data that internally the administration and coordinated entry is going to use to figure out where our efforts are working and maybe where we maybe need to change some of the strategy. So this is part of the internal data that they're going to continue monitoring. I don't know if you all want to speak to that a little bit, our data folks in the audience. So then we also have some internal data points which we're going to be working on. It's actually included in the mayor's report, page. So in the update on the Anchorage Housing and Homeless Services Initiative, it's page 4 of that 5-column graphic there that has public safety and parks, coordinated entry, safety for homeless.
Kind of a point in time kind of deal.
No, it's the mayor's report, so it's the first thing is background, community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's the 4th page in that report. It has public safety and parks, coordinated entry, safety for homeless, housing, and coordinated staying. These are something that when we met, we talked about as the external focus for the data dashboard, particularly because this first 2 to 3 sections are the areas where we know the community is most interested in. Particularly when we talk about public safety and the parks, that is an area that all of our constituents reach out to us on a frequent basis regarding. And then on the right-hand side of that chart, that's really where a lot of the focus is of the coordinated entry and a lot of the work that Ms. Burke does. That's where she puts her focus. So we're looking at this as a model for the external data dashboard that Ms. Burke hopefully will have sometime in July for us to look at. Hopefully at the next meeting. Yes, Mr. Constable.
On the phase 1, phase from 3, contact case management, your 3rd item, downtown homeless interactions with youth. I'd like to know how you're defining downtown. Because too tight a definition of downtown doesn't serve the actual problem. We're just in the business district or just a C Street. I'm gonna have a problem.
Sorry, Chris, what page are you looking at?
Back to the front of the section, just after the mission statement. It's the table.
Gotcha.
Item number 3. We just get myopic sometimes when we see downtown, we only think the grid that stretches to C Street. And this issue is even more intense as you get closer to Ingrid and Gamble on 3rd Avenue. And so it just needs to be relating to those places as well.
Thank you, Mr. Combs. Good point. So any other thoughts and questions on that? We'll have a much lengthier discussion on the data dashboard for the meeting in July, when we'll have drafts of what that's actually going to look like, both the external and the internal next month. So then moving on to the mayor's report, and we have Belinda here to give us an update and talk a little bit about the fair housing plan and some of the items coming before us on the Tuesday meeting.
Well, thank you. Good morning. Nancy Burke asked me to present the mayor's report this morning, and I wanted to add a few additions. One, I just want to give a context and thank our new members of the Assembly for working on this, because we represent an enormous amount of time and energy that many of you have spent on this issue in Anchorage, as well as the people in the audience. And I want to thank you for those efforts. This committee started quite a few years ago with an educational component on substance abuse and alcohol and drug abuse in Anchorage as the foundation for learning more about what leads to homelessness, and that was under Chair Evans. And so now we have shifted our level of responsibility, if you will, as well as the efforts in Anchorage to look at all of the strategies that have been either launched or we're getting ready to launch. And so you all have a valuable perspective to lend to that. So today we're going to talk about several things. One is, I would like to do kind of a shout out for the project that was a week ago was launched publicly at the planning department. The huge $180 million project over at Tudor and Elmore, which will have I think it's 1 to 200 affordable housing units, not low income as the developer explained. These are affordable market value, market rate affordable housing rental units that will be developed there after the DHHS building is constructed, which is a very small part cost-wise of that economically fabulous project that's being developed over there at Elmore and Tudor. So we had about 70 to, I think around 75 people attended the meeting. And so this is linked to what is being developed in Anchorage, which is more housing. We're in a desperate need for more housing, as we know. We also will have before you next Tuesday the fair housing plan that was developed by our HUD-funded team at DHHS, Nancy Anderson and Steve Ashman and the team, in addition to all the community input that we received from many people in this room related to fair housing issues in Anchorage and how to ensure that we are providing access as well as neighborhood developments in Anchorage that represent our community. So that's before you on Tuesday, as well as our community consolidated plan, which we hope you will approve both of those. Let's wind our way through Nancy's report this morning. And for those of you in the audience, it's entitled the Update Anchorage Housing and Homeless Services Initiative, Office of the Mayor, if you want to walk through it together. We have made progress, but there's so much more to do. We have many experts in the room today. If you have specific questions on certain outreach efforts with the CAP team, if you have questions on the exciting new grant opportunity that Covenant House is leading, as well as the research, we have presentations this morning, and we have experts if you need to ask there for further information. So the community coordinated entry has been required of us for quite a few years now by our primary funder. Both HUD and AHFC have required this effort and this coordinated system to ensure that folks that present, whether it's in homeless camps, whether it's through the Children in Transition program, whether it's through the cold weather shelters and churches, and throughout our community, we have a more quick and efficient way of connecting them to services. It's one thing to talk about the coordinated entry, it's another to do it. We're still making sure that we expand the silos from family housing, youth housing, and chronically homeless individuals, and expanding the way that we provide coordinated entry. Christy is here representing the coordinated entry lead. She guides that and helps our community succeed in that effort. So the coordinated entry is still in development. We always want to be farther ahead than we are, but we are functioning with the coordinated entry now in Anchorage. And one of the ways to make that most robust is to ensure that our social service providers are accessing the homeless management information system and utilizing that more fully. So we've gained ground in that area. And then a special focus for the mayor is the adult homeless services coordination. As we see, we have a great deal of challenges as we move forward with these efforts, both on Third and Carluck, as well as continued calls from community members on camps, and they're concerned about the safety of people in camps. We also have, I'd like to recognize Elizabeth Schultz, who represents the governor's efforts on homelessness. Welcome, Elizabeth. And she can answer questions from our governor's perspective. So page 2 is the diagram of how we provide services in Anchorage and the plan that we're using to increase from 100 people a year that are successfully housed to making sure we retain individuals in housing and make sure that we go as quickly as possible from outreach and engagement with an individual to actually housing them, providing them with economic opportunities if they are able and willing to work, as well as assistance in mental health and medical needs. So the 3 components of the system change, some of you are very familiar with this, is locate, it's kind of a no-brainer, locate the people in the community and provide what we think of as a screening for individuals who need to be quickly screened and assessed to their level of vulnerabilities. The key with housing folks who are vulnerable, whether they're families, whether they're individuals, whether they're youths, is making sure you match the right housing to the person. So item number 2 is identifying the housing needed and connect them as quickly and efficiently as possible to these services. And then, of course, always it rests on how do we sustain these programs and how can we make sure that we have sustainable services and finances for those. If you turn to page 3, this is an overview of some of the innovative and expansive ways we have increased our opportunities in Anchorage. One is coordinating the resources, which we've talked about for many years, and we've increased that through this coordinated entry. And in addition to that, the support from the Anchorage Assembly, the $425,000 that was approved beginning March of last year to increase the coordination of these services and actually add to the community action policing team, the CAP team. We have Tanya here from Anchorage Community Mental Health Services who actually does the outreach into the camps. In addition to that, we are beginning, this isn't in this document yet, we are beginning to work with the Providence Residency Program, the Family Medical Center that is on Latouche and 36th, to do homeless medical outreach. They are working extensively with DHHS and some of our other funders to move forward with homeless medical outreach. The purpose of homeless medical outreach is to provide low-level medical services like wound care and things like this with the ultimate goal of bringing people into housing. And so we're developing that program right now with the Providence Residency Program. We also succeeded in getting the first stage of the Pay for Success funding. And right now, the reason Nancy Burke isn't here today is because she is on a site visit for one of the more successful programs, our partner program, and they're researching that right now and having a site visit. So I'm sure she'll get back to you with that next month. We also have the Youth Homeless Demonstration Award, which was a tremendous success with Covenant House, a $1.5 million grant to focus on youth. And in addition to that, as a community, under the mayor's direction and the first lady, we are working on human trafficking. There's a great deal of labor and sex trafficking that occurs with young people. That's one of the primary ways of bringing people into these traffic situations, and Covenant House is leading addressing that as well. They're a very vital partner at that. We have the Anchorage Coalition into Homelessness, the Continuum of Care, and all the efforts there, as well as United Way and Providence Health Systems as primary funders. In this document, it also informs you that the Mental Health Trust Authority will be continuing the funding for the Homeless and Housing Coordinator, which is Nancy Burke's position, through June 20th of 2019. Chair Rivera has already gone over the graph, which gives you the focus areas for all of the different efforts we're providing in Anchorage, from looking at the safety issues, which many people attend this meeting because they're concerned about safety. We also are defining what we'll be doing with the coordinated entry. Under your direction, you approved the cold weather shelter extension. So for up to 2 years, we'll be able to successfully place people in overflow so that they can access services more effectively as we dismantle camps. And then, because as we recognize there's a tremendous challenge with folks in public settings related to their homelessness and the camps. In the homeless medical outreach efforts, we have already started working with Tanya to do outreach and providing, there's a corridor of folks that we're impacting with the homeless medical outreach in the panhandling arena, so that we don't just go out to camps, we're also dealing with folks who are very visible on the street corners. So on page 5, you see the different explanations of the outreach to camps, shelter spaces, the configuration of safety net services. She has informed you of that, as well as providing you with the nonprofits that are currently working on some of these efforts. And of course, we need to increase housing. That's one of the primary purposes of what we're trying to accomplish together. So that's just a brief overview of the work under the mayor's homeless and housing coordinator. Do you have any questions over the report?
Yeah, we'll start with Mr. Constant.
Well, mine doesn't cover the report, so we can come back if there are questions about the report.
Sure, then Mr. Dunbar.
I have two questions. The first is approximately how many people experiencing homelessness now receive direct services at the downtown Health and Human Services building? Just for you, on a daily or weekly basis, how many walk-ins do you have? And if it's a significant number, how do you think those people are going to get to the new campus on Tudor?
Most of our recipients of services at DHHS come from other agencies. We work extensively with Catholic Social Services and the refugee program. We have 15 distinct programs at the health department, and we try to make sure that those are integrated. So if someone comes in for immunizations with their children, we refer them immediately upstairs to the WIC program. So your question is how many people come that are homeless? I would say that most of our services we provide out into the community. We do extensive work on TB, direct observed therapy for TB, and we take that into Brother Francis Shelter, Beans Cafe, to individual hotels because some people have to be staying where we can reach them for daily treatments. So I would say that on a daily basis, we probably see perhaps 10 to 20 people that are what you and I would think of as walk-ins. And out of that 20 people, probably only about half that or 15 may be homeless. It is on a bus route. We currently, of course, are on a bus route, and we will be able to be, we will be able to increase our access when you think of the whole UMed district. We serve extensively, we serve Alaska Natives, we serve refugees, we serve people who will be going to Providence, Alaska Native Medical Center, etc. So I think it will expand what we'll be able to do. It will be farther from downtown, so my trips over here will take longer. But other than that, I think it will be very, very accessible to people.
So my second question, which is related to the report, but unrelated to the last question, is, we approved that cold weather extension.
Mm-hmm.
What practically has been the effect of that, and what are we seeing since we've done that?
If you don't mind, I'll ask. I saw Lisa Caldera, who runs the Brother Francis Shelter. Can you give a reflection on if you've seen any change or?
It's my understanding currently there are no additional beds outside of Brother Francis Shelter, Gospel Restitution, and a downtown food center when it comes to cold weather. So Beans Cafe is not currently sheltering using that ordinance.
Hi, Lisa. It is right that downtown Hope Center wouldn't be able to, the ordinance allows them to
continue.
So that's a big deal that women have a place to go. So I think that that's a very practical change that makes a difference in a lot of women's lives. So it's very helpful. It's too bad there's not more.
So the answer is that ordinance has allowed the Downtown Hope Center to continue receiving funding and remaining open, but what's that?
It's for the overflow at night. In other words,
Right.
Yeah, and it also we expanded that, and so they have 2 current economic programs development programs they work on there.
But so far, we don't have the need to do the emergency opens at Beans Cafe at night. Is that what you're saying?
I'll say it, Brother Francis Shelter.
We haven't had the need to go beyond the 240 that we currently do, and it's not cold weather.
So it allows us to do that, but they haven't had to utilize it. So.
Good, thanks.
I would add, though, that from what I heard from the Hope Center is they're not open because they don't have funding. And so the net effect is nothing yet, is my understanding. So from one side, are they doing it now?
The Hope Center continues to receive women in the shelter every evening.
Okay.
But they do not receive funding from any public resources.
Okay, so you are open again?
They are open, and they are receiving women in the shelter every night.
And sir, could you identify yourself for the record?
I'm Dave Piper, I'm with Christian Health Associates.
Thank
I
you.
volunteer there every other Wednesday night, so I see those women.
All right, any other questions on the mayor's report? Okay, then I think Mr. Constant had some questions on the ordinances coming to us on Tuesday.
So, Mona, can you kind of give us a little more in-depth briefing on what the priorities are that have come out of all of those surveys and all of that input that we're being asked to approve?
Yes, on the consolidated plan, that's a community-wide plan where we obtain public comments, we survey individuals, we survey nonprofits, and all of our partner agencies to provide us with input on how our community wants to move forward with housing. And we continue to have individuals and groups identify senior housing as one of the priorities for youth aging out of foster care. That's a great need that we have in our community to make sure that these kids are safe and they can move into adulthood safely. We continue to have a great deal of input on the housing chronically homeless individuals, as well as the safety concerns with what we think of in our statistics as a younger population becoming homeless, and there tends to be more aggression in some of the folks that we've been working with over the years. So this is a very exhaustive plan, and it dictates what we do in these 5-year blocks, and then every year we have an individual annual action plan that we place before you, as well as getting input from the community. So I don't have the plan in front of me now, but it provides you with the projects that we're proposing, if those are available, and we name them, and we describe the projects in detail, the budgets, etc. So there's a lot happening in that area.
So, personally, I'm not confident that we move forward with a plan that spends millions of dollars on projects without a thorough review of what those projects are. And I don't know when that opportunity is before Tuesday. And so my concern is that, as y'all hear me say so often, these funds all get directed to one part of town, then that's a bad deal. And I don't want to make that assumption. I want to understand. And so that's my concern, is we have 2 major ordinances before us that have had no real hearing.
We provide you with the links for those reports, and we can certainly send those out again so you can review them. And there
And
are
I
certain
imagine
core
it'll come in
areas.
the binder for review. So-
Right.
Well, binders downstairs are available now, after this meeting, go down and pick them up through there.
Right,
But I know what you're saying, we should probably have had a meeting on it.
right. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Trainer.
One, you said more aggressive, is that drug induced, or is it just a sense of frustration?
I think there's probably multiple causes of that. Of course, we have recognized for a while that at times we're serving a 3rd generation of homeless individuals. So grandparents have been homeless, adult parents have been homeless, and then now we're working with some of those children. So when you look at the ACEs study, which is the study that recognizes childhood adverse experiences, and you look at how that plays out in homelessness and suicide and some of the other social problems, I think that's some of what we're seeing now. We also have a huge amount of children in foster care. And so we really need to be addressing that in our community as to how to make sure we support these kids so they don't end up as adults in homelessness.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd
Mr.
just
Johnson.
add to that. The experience in the neighborhood with these kids who are coming in pretty aggressive is that they're young and they have fight left in them still, that they haven't kind of succumbed to the hopelessness. And so there's an opportunity there for actual engagement in treatment that's different than a lot of people who have accepted a long-term experience in kind of addiction and homelessness. And so that's really a ripe area to invest. Those kind of more aggressive and more young, kind of fiery people.
Actually, I have a question for you, Ms. Freeman. So if we do decide to have a work session and delay the adoption of those 2 plans, would that hurt anything from your perspective?
The fair housing plan is time sensitive. This is the second time we had a technical error in the plan. We used a different format, and we had to change to the current format. So that has been before you before, and you've approved it. This is the second approval of that. So as far as the consolidated plan, all of these things are time sensitive, but if we needed to, we could certainly have a work session if that worked best for all of you. Take a look at it. It's robust, but the budgets and the specific project ideas are probably what Mr. Constant is most focused on. So So make sure you wade through that and see. Some of it's historical information, and so I think it will all make sense once you look into it.
Thank you. All right, so then I'm actually going to mosey on back to the committee discussion. Mr. Constant had wanted to touch on his idea that he's been floating around and working with the farm. So Mr. Constant.
Yeah, so many of you have probably heard some rumors about the idea of dedicating for a short time part of the land at the old Native Hospital site to be an active and working farm. And why has this come before the Homeless Committee? Because one of the goals of the project is to establish another effort that can help people become engaged with work and opportunities to do things. The proposal, very specifically, is just to add a short section of a paragraph to the housing land, the Heritage Land Bank 5-year action plan that would just essentially identify that this kind of a use is something that is desirable. And the theory in its kind of broadest scope is that in working on a farm, there are many jobs that could be of value. It could be planting and harvesting, it could be marketing, it could be sales and promotions, it could be fulfillment of orders, it could be moving dirt piles. It just depends on how the thing is organized. And so I've been developing with a group of very interested members of the community, including the East Downtown Action Group, which are people who live right there and who have kind of the most at stake from a property owner perspective. South Central Foundation, also working with the Mayor's Homeless Coordinator, Nancy, pretty closely on this, in discussions now with Robin at the Land Bank to develop a program that can help build some skills in folks and some kind of sense of value, because that's something that's missing. And in the context of the homeless population, we've been talking about in that bell curve of people, we have those short-term homeless people that we're able to help get stood up on their feet with just infusions of some kind of emergency money. They need rent assistance or something along those lines. You have the chronic population, which are very deeply resourced, but in the middle you have this population that's kind of more than a year homeless, but functionally speaking are capable and can be, with the right set of supports that are not funded, help to get back on their feet. So this is kind of targeting that population of folks. And the long and short of it is, let's take a 15-acre plot or some part thereof of downtown land that's not really suitable for construction and turn it into something positive for the neighborhood and for the people who live there. And so coming up on our meeting on Tuesday is this amendment to the Heritage Land Bank plan. And I think I have support. I'm just asking everybody for support and a discussion.
Mr. Dunbar.
I think it's a great idea. I'm curious how it's going to coexist with the Whole Foods.
Yeah, exactly. The comment that I received from that was, we would rather have a farm than a whole paycheck.
Yeah.
So.
Do we want to do a resolution of support for this out of the committee, or I mean, I think this is Chris. This isn't one of the more controversial ones. We're going to pass this, right? I mean,
If he gets 6 votes, you will.
Gets half the body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's controversial or not, but I just feel the more people hear about it, the better. And every time I turn around, I get new partners on the project, and so it's blooming, to use a punny metaphor.
Mr. Peterson and then Mr. Trainee.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have a relatively short growing season here in Alaska. So are you planning to construct greenhouses to get an early start, or just wanted to throw that out there?
Yeah, and the short-term plan is working with the state of Alaska has a seed bank. And the first thing that we would do is throw down a crop of rye that basically grow on rocks, just for show. It wouldn't be for food production, but to show that something good is happening there. Then the second phase is using some of the brownfield monies that we approved last meeting, perform some environmental analysis to ensure that there's no contaminants that are kind of dangerous from a food base or even a human being around base, because people have that fear. In fact, that fear is something that is now a discussion about all the homeless people living on the streets outside of the shelter, that they might actually be in a ball of toxins. And so it's an area of concern that we have to really figure out, because it might be that we're poisoning the people we're driving up there. Different story. We're going to do that analysis. Then the next phase is we'll do a business plan, and the business plan will identify the model of growing. We've imagined some high tunnel. We also imagine some just raised beds, and then we're working with what's this, Cameron Willingham's business, vertical something, and they build containerized farms that are getting shipped all over rural Alaska. And so what we'd like to see is a year-round growing environment established in this place using various technologies. The mayor's team had proposed maybe putting in a solar farm on the back end of the property that could provide heat and energy over a much longer time. Maybe we could push that growing season to 10 months. And the biggest hope, kind of I like to have big hopes. Western Alaska, we have climate change happening. In fact, we have subarctic agriculture occurring all over the West, and it's amazing what's beginning to occur. I would like to see this plot of land become a technical assistance hub for subarctic farming, that maybe once or twice a year people from all over Alaska come together and discuss farming technologies and techniques that are working. Why is that good for homeless people? I can imagine a day when we have a field of trained people who we kind of pulled off of that campus who are skilled in technologies that people in Western Alaska need. And then they're going to meet people from their home and not be exiled from town, but in fact be invited home to their communities as valued contributors. And so I imagine a long-term and very positive system developing here.
Well, we are the most food-dependent state in the nation. We produce less than 5% of the food we consume, so there's definitely a need and a demand there for food, so it has possibilities.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Trainee.
Just on this, that area is not good, not graded for any buildings because of rents. So I got to see no problem putting agriculture in there. Just make sure you've got security because a lot of homeless that live around that area. So that's going to be a concern.
Yeah, fence is part of the plan, and a building and a on-presence person to manage, because once it starts to be in use, hopefully the dynamics will change a bit, but we know what's going on.
Maybe organizations like using that land.
Yes, in fact, South Central Foundation has been there. They have the Koyana House program right on the property, and one of the thoughts, and Rural Cap as well, talked with their new president, CEO, Mr. Ferguson, and the idea of adding a tribal Alaskan kind of botanical program to the site is something that is very high value.
Good.
Yep.
Look forward to seeing it on Tuesday.
All right. So just going back to Mr. Dunbar's notion of a resolution of support, if we want to make that, I imagine we just need a first, second, and then I don't even know.
I'll make a first on that. Does it make you happier?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if we can get a second from one of the other people here.
Second.
Okay.
There you go. Support it.
Thank you. All right. And then,
Try and get unanimous support.
do we have unanimous consent for resolution of support for constant amendment number 2 to the HLB plan? Okay. So you have that. You're welcome, Mr. Costa. All right. So then, moving on, we have a couple of presentations.
Question. There's a question.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just didn't understand, who's operating the farm?
That's all in development. It doesn't yet exist. All that this amendment does is put in the Heritage Land Bank's plan that those 2 lots this would be a use that is something that they can contemplate. And so there's a small working group that's pulling it together, and we're still working that out. And so there are a lot of interested parties. We've been in discussions with Alaska Food Policy Council as one group, but then there are some ideas about maybe some of the use being agricultural but non-food, agricultural and food, and so we're still just looking for the right fit. South Central is one that we had talked to, and they wrote a grant to the feds that included this in it, and so there are also 2 other grant proposals that have been written to help develop this concept. We're just waiting on responses from the funding agents.
Yeah, so while we're on that, does anyone have questions on that, on Chris's and the community's farm idea? Yes?
Well, how does that benefit the homeless people directly? It seems like those are far off dreams for something to come, but what would be the immediate effect of what you're asking for?
The idea of creating a job program, skill building, it takes time, it takes effort, and that's what we're doing. And so there's no immediate promise to anybody of anything that we do here. Maybe in the mayor's office you can get that, but the assembly's a pretty slow roll. So the immediate effect is nothing, and the long term, hopefully, something really good.
Well, also to clarify, what's on those lots now?
It is empty land that's surrounded by a fence and has been so for 25 years. Yep.
Every step begins solar first.
All right. So then we'll move on to our two presentations, starting with Covenant House report on the Youth Homeless Demonstration Program.
So I'm so glad that you guys have given me this is my first, well, actually second day back from a sabbatical. So I'm glad you gave me something that I know. So we worked on this well before I left, and so I feel confident to discuss it. I will say, one of the kids, you have to love a young person's perspective. I walked into the building and she came up to me and said, "Oh, I'm so happy my blonde friend is back." And I went to hug her and she goes, "Were you in jail?" So, no, I wasn't, but I am back. I'm rested and had a great time. So anyway, the Youth HUD demonstration project was something for about 2 years that we saw coming down the pike as Covenant House, as we've evolved into this learning organization in which we realize we constantly have to look at what we do and be better at what we do and be better with who we serve so that the right resource comes at the right level. So in doing this, we were very interested in this Youth HUD demonstration project, which for a long time was really just a discussion. And then it became a reality. They appropriated $33 million to the project. They started sending out RFP information, so we knew it was going to happen. So there are 400 continuum of cares in the U.S. that were eligible for this, to apply for this. There were actually about 120 COCs that applied across the U.S., and Anchorage was selected as one. So we're very excited about that. It is managed through our Anchorage Coalition, and Covenant House remains the lead agency for it. But really our job is to convene everybody into conversation. And again, the beauty of this project to me was when we were working on it, we had about 33 different organizations that participated, signed on, invested in the process, from early learning organizations all the way through employment. My favorite quote from Lisa is, "The candlestick maker did not invent the light bulb." And if we're going to end homelessness, we've got to stop just sitting around in conversations with homeless providers, that we really need to really break down some of those silos. So this is a great opportunity for it. It's $1.5 million. I will tell you, during my absence of the 4 months, some of the things that we weren't clear on before I left, we're still not clear on now, meaning, how is the planning process? How are the dollars released? So it's pretty much falling in path that we have an amazing, I hear, HUD technical assistance provider that is working with us on it. We're starting to bring the different communities together that are a part of the 10 in selection. In fact, this week I'm going to spend some time with Seattle. The Anchorage Youth Care up there, a very successful program, was selected. So we're kind of bringing them into conversations. And really, it really is about us doing this as a real community project. This task force signed on. I think Bill Evans was the signature that you wanted to be a part of it. And to answer your question about how does the consolidated plan affect these things, we have actually 4 grants due the day after the consolidated plan is to be signed that is required as a part of a federal funding project. So there is timelines that happen when delays like that are affected. And the HUD demonstration project, we also have to be listed and identified that youth needs are prioritized in order for us to be successful in bringing this project to full fruition. So I'm doing the overview. I'm happy to answer any questions about my sabbatical, but I'm not sure that I know much about this process. But so Carletta, who has been the faithful leader of the organization and actually made us stronger while I was gone, will talk to you about what's been happening in my absence.
Thanks, Allison. I'm really thankful for letting us come today and give you an update on where we're at. I'm really going to talk about our progress and what our next steps are. So one of the things that we have to do is to create a community plan to end youth homelessness in Anchorage, and I want to emphasize that our community plan will very much complement the Anchorage community plan. We're going to be a subset of that plan, but for HUD purposes, we do have some very specific outcomes that we have to achieve. And one of those outcomes is creating a decision-making and management structure for this demonstration project. As Allison mentioned, we are part of the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness. They were the applicant for this project, as well as the fiduciary oversight for the project as well. So ultimately, all decisions, final recommendations do go to the Anchorage Coalition Board. We had to develop a leadership team. Nancy Burke, for example, is a member of that leadership team. Covenant House Alaska, as a lead organization, is a member of that team. We also have a member from Child Welfare, Travis Erickson, and one of the other requirements was to have a youth. I want to say that I think the youth engagement on this project is the most exciting part. HUD did require that each community have a youth task force, and we have an amazing youth task force of 14 youth right now, and the requirement is that 2/3 of the task force had to be currently or formerly homeless youth. And what is so exciting is to see the leadership of these young people and the ownership that they are taking. So they are a part of the task force. They also have a member on the leadership team, and they are attending every meeting that we have in regards to this project and contributing their ideas and thoughts and really taking ownership of that. One of the things that the youth said, which I think is important for everyone in this room to hear, is what's important to them is engagement in their community. Mentors, having people that they can connect to and be a part of. And I think that's true for all aspects of what we do, whether they're a youth homeless or an adult homeless. But I think the outcome that you're going to see as a part of this project is that that's what we're asking, is ways to engage our young people in all aspects of our community. In addition to the task force and the leadership team, we have 2 work groups. We have an 18 to 24-year-old work group, which is specifically working on aspects related to youth ages 18 to 24, making recommendations for housing. And then we have a work group for youth ages 14 to 17 that is specifically looking at housing options for youth under 18, but also prevention and diversion.
And before you go on, Ms. Mack, I have a question for Mr. Costa.
Yeah, just briefly, I'm not sure of the appointment process for the youth commission, but I would recommend that your group sends a member to those meetings. We have the municipality has a youth commission.
I'm really excited to report that we are in conversations with the Youth Commission. We're looking at how we can engage them in this process. One of the ideas that came out was there are a few cities that have apps, and apps that allow young people to connect and find what resources are. So that was one of the outcomes that the youth would like to see. So we've connected with the Youth Commission as a joint project. I did talk to George Martinez, and we're looking at appointing a young person onto the Youth Commission, but I'm also excited to report that the Anchorage Coalition at the last meeting voted to have a youth on that as well. So what HUD is recommending and asking communities to do is to adopt the HUD criteria and benchmarks for ending youth homelessness by 2020. Now, when you say that, people get a little nervous. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that as a community we're saying that homelessness will never happen. What we're saying, what we're committed to, is that by 2020, Anchorage will have a coordinated response system in place to ensure homelessness is prevented whenever possible, and the criteria being that it's rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. So that when a youth has a homeless experience, that we're able to respond to it effectively. So one of the things we have created to get us to that point is our Anchorage Shared Vision. This is one of the first things we completed, and we're very excited about. So Anchorage is committed to ensuring every transitional age youth has a safe place to live and the supports necessary to thrive, and that by 2020, that their experience is rare and brief. It's a one-time occurrence, that we are supporting our youth in foster care. That has come up a number of times in today's conversation, that we are supporting youth through mentoring and permanent connections, and that we're supporting youth through cultural connections. That was also something that came up in our conversations with youth, is how do we make sure to engage them in appropriate cultural connections, and then improving access to housing and matching housing with youth and young adults' needs and youth choice. Youth choice is pretty significant as part of this project. And then one of the things that we're really starting to look at is how we're going to measure our progress. What are we going to hold ourselves to as a community when it comes to ending youth homelessness? So these are some examples. All homeless youth identified and no youth on shelter for more than 1 day. We do recognize that in our community, emergency shelter and outreach is a part of our team of care. We're not saying that those things are going to go away, but in order to ensure that we do minimize the homeless experience, that we're going to hold ourselves to that a youth will not be in shelters for more than 30 days. That does require that we have adequate housing and resources available, including mental health and substance abuse services.
And Ms. Beck, I have a question for Mr. Dunbar.
Sure.
Ma'am, what does youth choice mean?
Youth choice means that when we have options, whether they're housing options or supportive service options, that we're giving the youth choice to participate in those. That we're not basically making those decisions for them, that we're engaging them in the process. And I think that that's something that Covenant House is known for.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One problem that I've heard about over the years is that foster children age out when they turn 18, I believe. Is there some sort of coordinated plan to for people who are about to turn 18 and will no longer be in foster care, sort of so they don't fall through the cracks?
That is one of the things that we are looking at as part of this process, but also engaging the foster care system in the conversation. We do have a member of Travis Erickson's a member of our leadership team. We're also working with facing foster care in Alaska. That's an area that we recognize. I believe, though, a youth can actually now stay in custody up to age 21 and can choose to go back into custody if they want. So it's just really working with the foster care system to understand that process. And do you want to answer that?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's true. They can stay in foster care or they can re-enter back. I think that, we present these in great conversations, and if there's anything that I might have taken back from my sabbatical is that sometimes you also have to be really honest. This is not going to be easy. And we're going to have, everyone is going to have to look at what they do and be willing to make some changes with things. And I think that if there was one area that I know under my leadership and kind of doing it is we're going to need to have some hard conversations with foster care in our system as a state, but yet we're standing there as a partner with them. We're not coming in a accusatory state, but we're coming from a place of, if we're going to do this and we want to do this, then when we buy into this, you have to buy into this too. And I think forums like this, I love what you said, Chris, that it feels like you're a slow rolling kind of thing. You don't have to be, because those are things that we can create, and we can use this forum to have hard conversations and say we support change in our community. So I think that it's an exciting opportunity for our community, and we'll get a lot of external from lower 48 kind of best practices on things that will infuse us. But none of this is really going to be easy. And that it definitely will take into account, and if you think about it, we're looking at ages from 14 to 24. So that's youth and adult services. They're going to have to make sure that we are kind of in a side-by-side kind of link on some of these things. So, we're ready for it, but it's, I'm not going to say it's a walk in the park.
And what I would just add to that, I echo what Allison is saying. Our commitment in this plan is also to make recommendations on things exactly what Allison's talking about. Like, what are recommendations we want to make as a community that we need to address to ensure that we're able to fulfill this vision? And that could be policy changes.
And one more question from Mr. Costa.
We're going to follow up before that. Just on the first page, I noticed that Anchorage was considered one of 4 rural communities that got one of these grants. And I grew up 3.5 miles from a rural community, and I can tell you that most people wouldn't consider Anchorage a rural community. So how did we make that classification?
Yes, that one was a part. We have some amazing people in this community that constantly have conversations with HUD about their interpretations of various things. And we've been working with Cook Inlet Housing and Carol Bohr on really changing the dialogue about how Anchorage is seen, that we're really the largest village in Alaska, but that we should be kind of recognized for that, but that if they do some work here, we should be able to spread out into the state and assist others within our own state. The challenge with the way that this RFP was written was it forced it to either be balance of state or Anchorage. And so we both made application, and Anchorage was successful. But we're committed to what we learned from this process, it really be a part of Alaska's capacity.
The intention of this funding is that in addition to identifying new projects to be funded with this money, that we will be evaluated, and the idea is that you can duplicate what we did
Right.
within Alaska and other communities outside of Alaska.
Very similar to what Alaska would be in Wyoming and different places where they have population hubs, but yet, they very distinct village systems.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Constant.
Yeah, just one thing to note, I don't know where the 24-year-old ceiling came, but it seems like there's been a national shift in the last few years to 26. And that is relative to like insurance provision and healthcare, and the fact that people are able to stay with their parents until such time. And so I would be interested to hear kind of what the change would be if it were expanded or if that's possible.
Yeah, there's also, the literature that supports why it moved up to 24 is now saying 30.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I think that going to 24 is not an easy stretch even for Covenant House. Like we have to revamp a lot of different models and how we do things. And so I think we were very comfortable that at least said 24, because what that means for us is someone could be in one of our transitional living programs at like 21, 22 and stay till they're 24. I don't know that our model right now would give us the best outcomes if someone 24 jumped back in it and was not familiar with the process, because they'd be surrounded by 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds. So I think that, Chris, HUD gives you a range, and you then kind of as a community decide what you have some capacity to do. And I think we're closer to the capacity of doing 24, but if we found a partner that wanted to join us and go to 26, then, definitely we would probably have youth on this committee that would vote for that, because it really doesn't, their need doesn't stop at 24. It's trying to figure out how to make a permanent connection.
Last comment that
These are getting tough.
Yeah, change happens in a funny way most of the time. That is, you do all the work and nothing happens, and you do the work and nothing happens, and all the work, and then one day it just works. And most people look back and say, wow, you did that, it was so easy. But it wasn't easy. It was lots of time. So.
Well, I have to say that, whenever we started our capital campaign for Covenant House, and it was in the middle of the banking crisis, and raising $25 million or whatever was needed, everybody said it couldn't happen, and then it did happen. But the hardest part wasn't doing that or doing the building. It was even working internally on our own culture and changing ourselves as an organization. That was much more heavy lifting the 2 years after we got into the space. But I think what that means is that's a benefit to the community. We're a community organization, and so our ability to see ourselves and change is, a capital project did make that happen. And if we never would have thought at the beginning we would come out and look so different than we do, but we are.
So our next steps, we're still in the process of putting together our community plan. The first draft is due to HUD on July 13th. And once they have until January to tweak it and get it finalized, and then we can start the process of soliciting project applications.
And I will say, true to form in most of the situations, there is absolutely no dollars rolling in on this with all this happening right now. So it's just one of those things that, when requests come for gap funding or different things, you have to appreciate that, we're leading all these efforts in order to get that funding stream to come down and do it. So.
Any other questions
Not like we're
from members on this presentation? No. And any questions from the audience on this presentation? Pizza? So, Mr. Constant would like me to let the audience know that there is pizza if anyone wants food. So our next presentation is the Path to Success presentation by Alex.
Is it in the?
No, it's not there. So do you have a flash drive version of it?
No.
Here, I can. Yeah.
Now's a good time to eat if you're hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. So just take a minute to transition here.
Got it, so pizza. Comes to pizza.
downstairs. You guys all got copies. Sent it out.
Oh, thank you. Oh. Can I get a copy of that for records, please? Oh, yes.
Okay, I can do that.
I don't think it's letting you sign in as an AP
Well, I have an account myself, so. Okay. Yeah, it's on your drive.
All right, well, thank you everyone for, first of all, thank you for allowing me to present today. And I'm glad that it was after everyone had a chance to have some food. I'm excited and at the same time nervous because I'm excited to be able to present this opportunity. However, I'm a little bit nervous because I have to do it in 15 minutes, what has taken us 2 years to create. So just cope with me. Our project, Path to Success Cafe, I have no idea that there was groups like this already involved in things trying to help the youth in the community. This project has actually just been a personal project that I've done through my personal businesses. So when I'm listening to everything that's happening here today, I get more excited because I see that my vision actually is bigger than what I thought. And there's more people that are willing to help the youth in our community. The Path to Success Cafe, this will be a cafe run by a local private nonprofit organization that will help the youth at risk and the homeless youth in a program that works closely with and helps them shape and helps the mayor's systems that impacts the young people and the families in our community. Path to Success will target the root of the problem of homelessness in our community by helping young people before they actually reach the point where it'll be hard to find solutions. And as I heard Mr. Constant earlier mention, it's harder when someone has already experienced long-term homelessness in the community. So with this program, we're actually trying to target before they even get to that point, helping young people reprogram the beliefs and habits that basically defines the destiny. And the reprogramming of a person has a lot to do because we are creatures of habits. Everything we do, wherever we are in life at this moment, is based on decisions that we have made. And some people have made really good decisions, some made poor decisions. And that doesn't necessarily mean that these young people are bad and they're hard. A lot of times they're really good-hearted kids. If they just haven't had the opportunity to make good decisions in their lives, and based on their personal experiences or based on the peers that they surround themselves with. So with this program, we're going to help them achieve success and happiness by meeting certain needs that are fundamental to every single human being. This program will provide the 6 universal needs to drive all human behaviors. These needs are the driving force behind every youth's decision. Now, what are these 6 human needs? The first one is certainty. Everyone in our lives, we need to be certain about things, how they work, and this helps. And now, these 6 core human behaviors can be always used in a positive way or in a negative way. And as you're looking into this, just have in mind and think of some of these youth that you've met or know about experiences and bad happenings in the community, and you'll see how they sometimes use this in a negative way. And then also think of ways that you know people that have used it in a positive way. But the first one is certainty. We all need to be certain about things. And when youth are certain that they are loved and that people care about them, then you build trust. Now they're able to trust on those that they feel certain about. Sometimes it can be their peers. But in this program, we want it to be the right mentors that are going to help them feel certain about their life outcome and what's going to be happening with the program. Another need that every single human has is uncertainty. And while certainty is very important, we still need variation. We need to have excitement in our lives. So at points, we need also the uncertainty. And this is what keeps them from getting bored. So our program allows them to always increase and be able to have new things to work on and improve. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that and what the program provides for them. The other need is significance. we need meaning in our lives, and we want our lives to have purpose and direction. And youth are no different, right? And they want to have a direction. And if we provide them the right direction, they're going to be able to make the right decisions. Connection. Without connection, there's really nothing. There's a book by John Maxwell. It's called People Communicate But Few Connect. And on this book, it talks about how we all are able to talk to each other, but unless there's a real connection, we cannot get anywhere. And unless we have a true connection with the youth, we're not going to be able to get anywhere with them. So the other need is growth. And beyond fulfillment, on the previous need, we want to learn and become more than what we are. We want self-worthiness. We want to be able to feel value. And the last one is contribution. We all want to contribute to something. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, youth make this decision, again, based on wanting to feel they belong to something and they want to contribute to something. And a lot of times it's just the wrong things that they contribute to. So we want to give them the right path to make sure that they contribute to the right things. Now this is a program that we do, and it takes a whole 2-day program to actually target a lot of these things and needs. But the 6 needs of every single human being. But with the Path to Success Cafe, on this program, we're going to get involved in areas where it comes mental health, the positive youth development, work readiness, education, leadership, and the last and very important to us is entrepreneurship. We want to teach these young people how to become the next leaders in the community and also become entrepreneurs, owning their own business so they contribute to the community. Our mission is to assist at-risk youth and young people getting to their adulthood. In this, right now, we're targeting the Anchorage area. And we want to help them become productive citizens by providing learning and work environments where they feel challenged, respected, and accountable as they strive to meet the demands of adulthood. We've actually, this is a program that, like I mentioned before, we've already been running privately. And after a successful first year of operating 2 dining cafes here in Anchorage and a culinary program, we're looking to expand this and be able to help more youth in our community. We've actually worked with 3 young people. The first one came out from incarceration. Nobody will give him a job. Most likely, the direction he was taking, he was going to go back to incarceration. But we gave him the opportunity. He started working part-time with us. And after about a year in our program, now he's actually assistant manager at one of the local restaurants here in town, Willowwalk. So it's a system that is already proven. We had another young lady that also was what they call couch surfing, was sleeping with her friends, and we took her in also as an employee. We train her. See, our program not just working at the cafe. I actually work with them in the reprogramming, in the leadership skills, and the entrepreneurship. Now she owns, with her sister, a coffee shop off of Muldoon. So we have very successful stories in our program, and we just needed to bring this to maybe an organization that has better resources and has bigger outreach in our community to make sure that not only 2 people become successful in 1 year, but we want to be able to have more than that, 20, 100 young people. By allowing the private nonprofit organization to run the program, this will open the opportunity to have a greater impact in Alaska and the youth. Now the cafe, it's based on our model, Olin Cafe. It's a local company. It was started by an entrepreneur and corporate trainer, myself. In this, when you look at our website, Facebook and Yelp and all this, you're going to find that we hold the 5 stars by local customers. So we strive very highly to have success in customer service, and all of our employees are trained that way to be able to maintain the 5-star ratings. We've been voted the best coffee by independent experts. We're roasting our own coffee here locally, small batches. We were voted as the top restaurant for 2016 by Eat24. It's an online ordering system. And we have the largest ski wall display in North America in our new location on Diamond. And recently we acquired the Ready-Made Dinners location at Midtown. And this is a location that we want to turn, be the first cafe that turns into the program that we're looking into. Now, to tell you a little bit about my past, I'm a founding partner and certified trainer for John Maxwell. I was born and raised in Mexico City, so I live very closely to probably one of the toughest neighborhoods in Latin America, and that's been considered like that by as the toughest neighborhood in Latin America. We moved to Texas when I was 12, and in there, it was a daily, it was regularly, daily, where gangs will shoot each other at a junior high where I assisted. So I've been in communities where it gets so out of control that people are not safe anymore in their homes. And when I see Anchorage violence starting to increase to that level, it gets me worried, because I really do not want to see my hometown now to get to that point. And the only way to do that is by targeting, again, the youth before they get to that point, and helping them reprogram themselves mentally. Now, fortunately, I had mentors, and I started running with the wrong people after high school, but I had great mentors that actually took me in and started directing me to the right path. One of those mentors, the first book he gave me was a book by Tony Robbins. It was called Awaken the Giant Within. This was something that I was never taught in school, I was never taught with my parents, and I was never taught anywhere else. But it was amazing, the information that it had in here. How can I become of more value, and how can I turn all my negativity and everything negative in my life and turn it into a positive? So I was very amazed by this book. And so I went to my mentor and I said, do you have any more books like this? So he gave me more books. He gave me a book by John Maxwell. It was a book of leadership, the 21 Unrefutable Laws of Leadership. Little did I know that 15 years later, I was going to be partnering with these great people that I was reading on those books. And one decision after another one allowed me to make myself put on the right path to be able to one day have the opportunity to work with Dr. John Maxwell as one of his certified trainers in the world, and also to become a certified trainer for Tony Robbins. So the only reason I did this is because I wanted to contribute again to others and be able to pay back for what was given to me. Now this allowed me to work with corporate companies as a corporate trainer. I work for Avon, a very successful company in the cosmetic industry. And even though it is the company for women, it allowed me in this company to work as a corporate trainer and learn really a lot of more things at a corporate level that I was never introduced as a manager in restaurants. Now, I've taken all this knowledge to create Olin Cafe. And with this program, I wanted to introduce and help the young people that come involved in my company and help them. And that's why we're creating this program to help more young people. I'm also a certified trainer for a program that's called Focus, and a couple other different programs by Franklin Covey. So my learning never stops. I like to learn because I've learned that by having the right information in my mind helps me make the right decisions. And that's what we want to provide for the young people here in Alaska. We've actually created a university online. It's called leadershipduplication.com, where anyone, and this was targeted more towards executives and companies, where they can actually, at their own time and leisure, take classes on leadership.
So actually, if you can wrap it up.
Wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
you.
And so we created this company, Olin Cafe, and we're developing the program to be a full program of life skills, business management, leadership, and academic and culinary arts training. Now, food, it is the one thing that will give skills to any young people that will take the rest of their lives, not just in a business environment, but also in their home. And when they are able to cook, they have a feeling of success, of worthiness. And so that's what we know this program will just merge really nicely. and with a lot of ideas that I've already heard here today. We will donate the cost of the license fee as a franchise with a value of $30,000. And as I mentioned, our location on Ready-Made Dinners on Tudor, it is ready to start operating as of tomorrow. So it is not a dream that it's going to take a long time to accomplish. It is a working, operating business that can be turned into this program right away. Now, there's similar programs out there. Panera has a community cafes, and these are nonprofit cafes that they cater to help those in need by customers paying donations. Our cafe is going to be a regular cafe. It's not paid by donations. It's a full service cafe. And there's another one in Wasilla, Hands of Care Cafe, and their venture helps. It aims to help development disabled clients fit into the workforce. But this is a business venture by a private company. Again, we're going to be targeting the youth. Our coffee will provide a unique business model, existing operation business close to hospitals and the universities and our Tudor location. And we have multiple streams of income, not just coffee and bread. We have wholesale coffee. We have over 150 teas available. We have a catering service, license to resell the Ready-Made Dinners program, which brings extra traffic and results in additional source of income. So with all this, and like I mentioned, I only have 15 minutes, but I wanted to present this and maybe have the right people to help us because together I know that we can make a difference in our tomorrow's leader. So I thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any questions from members? And any questions? Mr. Trainee.
What's your address on Tudor?
It's 2476.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And any questions from the audience? All right, so thank you.
Thank you.
So then moving on to any final member comments. All right, and then lastly, any audience comments? You have 2 minutes. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Marcy Sharon from Cook Housing Authority, and I just wanted to make a comment about the collaboration of services and how important it is for us to make sure that we retain the service levels that we have. And so we have, in our continuum of care grant application, we have providers that are receiving funding, and it's important for us, for the Assembly Committee and for the community to realize that if there are providers that are at risk of and need even stopping services, for example, permanent supportive housing, that we need to be addressing that at the forefront and not at the end. So that's really important.
Any, yes?
Lisa Sauter with Beats Cafe and Children's Lunchbox. Just want to invite everybody. We are having the grand opening and ribbon cutting for our new Children's Lunchbox facility, which is located at 1020 East 4th Avenue. It's about a block from Beats Cafe. So please come join us this afternoon at 2 o'clock if you're interested.
Thank you. Any other? Yes.
Hi, Elizabeth Schultz. I'm on the Anchorage board to end Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness. I wanted to thank Senator Dunbar for his comments earlier in response to the comments that were made about how we speak about our homeless partners and people in our community of dignity. And I wanted to just also raise up a thank you to the coordinated entry system. I had a great opportunity as a board member to go in and sit at a coordinated entry meeting the other day to see how it actually looks and how it works when you look at these black name lists. And it was an amazingly inspirational time of a group of nonprofit leaders coming together to say, I know that person, he was in the parking lot, does anybody know this person? We haven't heard from him in a week, can you give me a cell phone? It was very, very technical, but it's the exact opposite of what was represented. It was recognizing these are people in our community, we can know them, we can know their names, we can know their stories, we can watch out for them, we can notice them, and that is happening, and I don't know if everybody knows that, and it was a great opportunity for me to leave a board meeting or an assembly meeting like this and go sit in and see what it looks like, and I would encourage everybody to reach out and perhaps do that. Catholic Social Services does the family meeting, NeighborWorks does the adult meeting, and you have a chance to see how this is working, and it is working. So I just want to thank the community for what they're doing.
Thank you. Any other comments?
All right. I want to say I'm from the court system, from the medical court, and what goes with CATC or CIH, so Cook Inlet Housing is, it is so important for providers
All right, then I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you.